And then different foils from here are going to behave a little differently in terms of how they roll. So some foils, you might need to start like actively flattening the board out as you press it up into the wind. Some will roll very quickly like the old spots. So maybe I'll talk about like kite timing first, and then we can talk about different foils. But I like to think about getting the kite like pretty much overhead before I start to bring the board up. And then the windier it is, the more you're going to try to actually like push and pump into that turn so that you're kind of putting some energy in and carrying speed into the wind to hold you up.
The more you pump with your foot.
The more you pump with your foot. If it's really windy and you're super overpowered, you almost go into the maneuver stopped because there's already 25 knots of current wind on the kite if you're not moving into the wind at all. So I realized the other day I was out on GS7 and it was blowing like 30, and I was like doing these pretty much stop tacks where like I'm switching the board under my feet, but it has like barely any flow on the foil, but you don't come down because you're just hanging on the kite for a second. Okay, so one way I like to make sure I don't screw up the kite motion is to go into it with only my backhand on the bar. Backhand, right? Yeah, that forced me to open my body up as I turn into the breeze. And it means that I don't stop turning the kite once it's moving across, because I think what a lot of you do, I'm guessing that we'll see in videos later, that a lot of what people do is they get the kite up over their head, and then they focus on trying to do something with their feet, and then they sink, and the kite's still over their head. Because really, like, you need to keep the kite moving into the new direction. So it's slow in with the kite, and then a faster dive out of it, especially if you're not overpowered.
Does the kite never stop up top? Do you think it's just, it comes up slower and then exits quickly, but it's not come up, stop, go?
Yeah, there should be no stall if you can. But sometimes you have to, like what Johnny was just saying, when you're really overpowered and you're gonna get foiled out.
Yeah, I think it's what you said. Like, it's the kite's coming up slowly, gets to a certain point where you start to follow with the board, and then the kite's leading, right? Because the kite needs to be accelerating me in that new direction. So the kite's already over here. This is kind of hard to describe, but like I'm assuming the wind is going this direction, right? I've headed up into the wind. The kite's probably just past 12 at this point, and then I switch my feet, and I'm still pulling. This is going to be my new front hand, right? So the kite's diving that direction by the time I get to where I'm falling into it, and then the kite's already pulling me that direction. If the kite isn't already diving that direction, I'm in the water, because even if the kite's pulling, it's just straight over my head. There's nothing like accelerating me onto the new tack.
When you go to switch, do you like give an extra yank on the kite to yank you, because you're, you know, as you
The
turn,
bar in out trim, like the total sail trim at that point, is key to keeping you like the right height on the foil, so that you can, like, you have this moment where you're basically like gliding into the wind like this, and there's a little bit of lift on the foil, and the kite's holding you up. It's mostly line tension.
And when you get to a point, it should be almost like a subconscious thing. It's just what you need to accomplish what you're doing.
Yeah, I think often right here, if you carry a lot of speed, you're sheeted out all the way. And if you're underpowered, you're pulling in on the bar and hoping that you can you're pulling in, but you're also diving. If I'm trying to go that way, this is going to be my new front hand. You got the kite trimmed in, and you're starting to dive that direction because you don't have much stored energy and like speed into the wind, and you've got to get the kite diving so that you can load the foil up and keep going. I think I was talking about with Mike the other day, the more throw you have on your bar, almost the easier this is, because right at that moment where you point up into the wind and you're going 20 knots, and now you're going 20 knots straight into the wind, is when you're trying to dump power on the kite if you're really powered. So if there's a moment where you're going into the wind and you get lofted off the board, that kind of means you're doing something right and that you're carrying speed into the tack, and you just need to adjust either how much speed you carry in or how much depower you pull on
If you're going
before
upwind at 20 knots, do you slow down at all, or do you try to go into the tack at 20 knots?
I mean, I think you slow down a little bit, yeah.
I mean, but your goal is to
Intentionally
not.
so, or are you just
I think
slowing down because you're
Because you
carving
have
out?
to, because you're getting so
Yeah,
much
exactly.
lift by going too fast, you know, so it's just a balance of this and speed.
Right.
And when you are switching your feet, do you intentionally like kind of ollie the board, or are you just trying to basically carve the board harder into the wind to get that snap?
I think the less power you have, the more you're doing that, like, push the board up into the turn.
So in really light wind, it's a really hard push
Yeah.
off your feet.
What do you think?
I mean, I've been working on, and it's, I've been trying to learn how to, like, jump up wind, so that's like a really hard thing, and then you send the kite back, and then you can actually manage to jump upwind. And then I translated that to my tacks, where it's that same thing, where you can actually edge, no, you can edge upwind. If you're that quick 70, just give it a little pop, and then cruise around and keep going. So it's hard to explain, but it's something that really quick edge at the last second will really, make everything come together pretty quickly.
So what are the adjustments then from this to super lightweight? What do you do? Bring the kite faster?
Try to carry speed into the tack if it's super light. You need all the apparent wind on the kite during maneuver that you can, which means going fast straight
Which is
into the
so
wind.
counterintuitive, like when it's light wind, run 18, everything is now so much faster. You
Right.
cannot sit on that kite. You cannot
Yeah, I mean,
bring it
you're-
up slowly.
Like what Johnny was saying, you want to keep the kite going even more so with those big kites. You just want to freaking, through the tack, you're just turning that thing as hard as you can.
But is it more of a bigger, slower turn in the tack in light wind?
Be, yeah.
Because I find like if I try and tack quickly, like in when I'm really powered, I do a quick tack and I'm powered up, I'm going this way. But when it's lighter wind, I bring it up and I turn quickly, and then I'm like, I don't have enough power in my
Right.
kite, and
Yeah.
I kind of come out of the water. So I feel like I have to think more about heading upwind and staying upwind and not turning back, or doing more of a kind of a rounded turn.
I think on big kites, the way you control your power during the tack is a little bit more on how quickly you turn the kite. Because it's so easy to stall the big kite when you're not going fast. But if you need more, if it's really light, you really are getting the kite over your head, turning into the tack, trying to carry speed, and then turning the shit out of it and trying to dive it in the
And
new
I'm
direction.
turning it quite a bit earlier than I would on like a 10 meter. I'm
Because it
starting.
just doesn't move as quick.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you switch your feet, obviously your front foot's got to go right in the strap, and then your back foot. Do you try to go in the strap, or you go in front of the strap?
I mean, in a perfect scenario, yeah, your foot lands up right in the back foot strap and you're gone. But just do what it takes to pull the tack, and I really wouldn't, especially if you're new at tacking, I wouldn't even be thinking about putting your foot in the back foot strap.
And then, so let's say you complete a tack, and now your foot's not in the foot strap. At what point, what do you do with the kite? Like now your kite's diving and you're getting some speed and the thing's loaded up.
Yeah.
How do you get your foot in the back?
What I like to do is just settle out, get going, with good speed on the new tack, and then worry about it. Because the most important thing is just getting speed on your new tack and
It's much
going.
easier.
But then how do you do it? Do you do a little?
And then I think,
ollie?
it's just a quick
Ignore it.
little,
Don't worry about it.
movement.
I mean, it's going to be faster if you go straight into the foot strap, right? Because then you don't have to do that, sheet out and
Yeah.
foot movement.
But it's not
Not a
going to
big
happen
deal.
until you get really good at tacking.
What do
You're not
you
gonna-
think that people should go into the tack with both feet and foot straps?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
I do too. Okay.
Yeah, don't because you lose time. I used to do that. I take my back foot out,
Yeah,
put
I
it in
think we all
front,
did.
and I think that
You also lose
waste
the ability
time.
to carve the board upwind.
Right.
Yeah.
So I went out with Will Sear, and he gave me this great thing to practice. That was it was basically going upwind, and you practice the pump with your back foot, but you don't actually tack. So you sort of come upwind, and then you come back downwind, and you just keep practicing that maneuver. And I wasn't doing that at all in my tacks, and it was like holy shit! And it made it so my tacks could foil so much easier.
Yeah, it's
And
that
I-
pop.
You do that
I
as
wasn't
long
doing
as
it.
the thing's
So
crossing
yeah,
12. That's
so
when
you
do that
basically
pump?
you're going
Is that
upwind,
right?
you just pump the back, come up as if you're gonna tack, and then don't tack and come back down, and just do 5 of those in a row, and you just get the feel for what the
Right.
back foot pump.
How
is
bared
like.
off are you when you come out of the tack? Like at a little or not at all?
It depends on the wind. If it's really light, you might come off on a beam reach just trying to get speed and
Always
then
come
head
off
up.
on a reach, and then I have a hard time walking back in.
I don't think that when we're well powered out here we bear off that much when out of the tack. I think that a good tack you actually are able to get the board heeled over in the new direction quickly and load the foil and it's not that you're bearing off to get speed, it's that you bear off because you don't actually get loaded on the foil quick enough. So a good tack is loading up and coming out close hauled. I'm sure if you look at your track, there's going to be a little bear away just to accelerate. But the challenge, I try to think about, can I get the board heeled over and loaded quickly? Because usually we have excess power here. We're not bearing off trying to accelerate just to stay on the foil.
I find that sometimes my feet get stuck in the straps, which is pretty ugly. So
Wiggle
when I
them
try,
first.
what's that?
Wiggle them before
I
you
do
go
that
in.
So
too.
what I do is before the tag, I try to let them.
Yeah.
You guys do that too?
Yeah,
Wiggle them
totally.
back a little.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because even like downwind, you know, you're like jammed all the way in the strap, but if you go into a jive and
Yeah,
it doesn't come out, it's not a good thing.
You can also take off those neoprene sleeves of your straps because that's why your feet will get stuck more.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
Because you don't need them and they make them twice as heavy.
So what's underneath them? Just
Foam
webbing?
and then the webbing on top of foam.
Are there people that aren't making tacks that have like a specific, like, I can get to this point, or I always fall like this type of thing?
And
Do you find shorter lines makes it easier or harder for tacking?
I think it's easier.
Easier, much easier.
Yeah.
Much easier.
I've got a couple. I'm going around, and a lot of times I get like I change my feet and come around, but then the foil and I get lifted a little bit out of the water, and then I crash. So I think I'm sheeting in too much. It sounds like as
Yeah.
I'm coming around. And I was told also that what you want to do is sheet the bar out as the kite's coming up. But it sounds like you kind of want to sheet it properly for just the right amount of lift to
Yeah.
stay at
And
the
to
same
keep your
height.
speed, I mean, I think that I see a lot of people that are failing their tacks, and when they're not foiling through the tack, they're almost stopped, you know, and you have no chance. So really just keeping your speed through the maneuver is really important. It's almost impossible unless you're lit out of your mind to pull the tack stopped.
I think if you're regularly getting lifted up, try to get the kite higher earlier before you really start to turn. Because
Okay.
it's if you just are going loaded up upwind and you quickly bring up the kite to tack, that's like a really loaded scenario when you move the kite downwindy that quickly. So bring it up slower and just depower more until you find that you're not having that happen.
Okay. And then if I don't do that, I fall off the back,
Dive it harder.
which send it
Yeah.
harder after it's up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or wait longer before the tack. I had that a lot at the beginning when I went into the turn too early.
Yeah.
Kind of flew
Mhm.
out of the turn. Because,
So wait till the kite's up higher.
yeah.
I think
Like if you sheet out almost more than you think you should,
Mhm.
then it kind of forces you to actually round up a little and stay
Your body
really
heels
low.
over.
Yeah. And then it
Like,
kind of,
when you change your feet, are you
Swinging
thinking you're directly upwind typically? Like straight into the wind when you're changing your feet?
Close. Yeah.
Because I found the same thing a lot of times when I was turning too much and then switching my feet, and a lot of times my tacks are better if I focused on just trying to go
Yeah.
straight upwind
Okay.
I mean,
while
one
I'm
thing
switching my feet.
I've
and,
watched-
and I'm thinking about my kite going over like this, you know, and it's like right in front of the bar is like right in front of your face.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing we do a lot out here, like Emil points it out all the time, is we lean our bodies back too far.
Going
and,
into it.
and when you have a lot of wind, you can do that and still tack, but I think that's probably, it's not good posture to have, cause you're,
I was just working on that yesterday, and like so many things, I can give a couple of pointers, just kind of try to keep in my head. First thing that helps is that long throw. My throw is from the shackle till the straight arm above my head, so like literally this much. It helps so much, especially when you're getting lofted like that, where you can
You have
shoot out
more.
this much and all this power too. And then that weightlessness as you're switching your feet. If you're standing on your board, if you feel pressure with either foot, it's gonna do something. It's gonna go left, right. So you need to be weightless. That kite needs to be pulling you up. And the way I can tell is when I'm actually pulling up on a strap with my toes. So that means that's a good feeling. Like on either foot, like as I'm getting in, as I put my feet in, and then this one I'm putting back. I want this new front foot to be pulling up with the toes against the strap. That means I'm getting still lifted with the kite, still gliding. The moment you actually step on it, you're losing it. That's it. The board is going down. And you achieve that by stepping into that tack. Like we were saying earlier, how push up that back leg and just stand up. If you're leaning like this, as you're switching your feet, it's only a bad tack. You can get away here because the wind may still lift you up and pull you through the tack, but in light winds, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
You actually have to be like standing up like this, like the bar hitting your chest. You're just kind of trying to avoid the bar.
So what's initiating, when you're going like this, what's pulling your body up? Is it the momentum and the turn and the
Both.
top of the board, or is it yanking on the kite and the kite
I think it's mostly kite is holding you up.
In stronger winds, in light winds, you will not have that much tense. You have to
Yeah.
work your body positioning.
think about where you're where you are relative to the foil. Like normally, your center of gravity is like over the middle of the board, right? But if you're right here, the foil's not gonna be lifting you anymore.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much dragging the foil on the board
Yeah, you're just
along
weightless.
while you swap your feet.
So it's gotta be the kite.
Yeah.
So I think if you cheat out a little more than you think, then you actually force yourself to trust the board at the beginning a little more, and you lose less speed by cheating in.
Joe, walk me through your footwork. I seem to be getting the kite around all right, but I'm
Yeah.
falling over my
I was
own
gonna
two left
add on.
feet.
So I think like something that was really a breakthrough for me is whenever I started thinking about kind of like I would tack a sailboat. There's something called a roll tack in a sailboat, and it's where you come through the eye of the window, and you and your crew, whoever's on the boat, stay on the old side as long as possible. And what happens there is the boat almost tips over on top of you, and then you scramble to the other side so the boat actually doesn't tip over on top of you and you're caught on that side. And I think that this is very similar to that. I think that you really want to stay on the old side of your board as long as possible till you can scramble to the other side and keep going. And what that does is it brings the kite farther onto the new side, and it makes your footwork quicker, and I think that it just throws your body naturally more. One thing I've noticed by coaching like Mike or Ariel is they're losing their back foot really early going into the tack. Like they're going to switch, and you know they just didn't wait long enough, so it's kind of throwing off their balance. So I think that if they literally just waited until you felt like you're gonna fall in the water on the old side and then went for your foot switch, I think that that's gonna improve your overall timing. And
Joey, I think that's a great call. One of the things I think you need to consider is keeping your upper body weight back over your back foot rather than your front foot. So you're pressing on the foil into the new tack that you're going on rather than being on your front foot and then having to get back.
right,
Right? So
Yeah,
not
exactly.
getting too far forward and getting pulled over.
yeah,
That was a kind of a breakthrough deal for me, was staying back. And Johnny, your arm off the bar deal is what induces that weight back. You keep your weight really far back, and that's what accelerates you out of the tack, I noticed. I don't know,
I
maybe
think
I'm
that's-
wrong, but.
So when you do the arm off the bar, cause I have never been doing that, do you choke up towards the middle of the bar more? With
Yeah,
the
you
one
must. I think so.
Right.
But you're definitely putting your other hand back on the bar when you.
when
Yeah, because
pull down on
if you
it.
go into it, you have one, but that's diving the kite. So when you come out, then you grab and finish.
But if the kite is big, you better.
No, but you have to move
Bro,
your
bar.
hand towards the middle of the bar before
Yeah,
you
I think
drop.
your hand's pretty centered.
Right.
One thing you can do, I don't know, I've tried to get Gia to do this, so maybe it's a good suggestion, maybe it's not. If you're not able to get to kind of speak to Joey's point about like staying on the old side to get you through the turn, if you're not able to ever get through the eye of the wind and you're kind of falling off the board before you ever actually point all the way into the wind, you could practice just turning through the wind and never trying to switch your feet.
Yeah.
And trying to come out toe side, because you can do a tack and come out toe side, or even just fall on your back after is probably going to be what happens. But just turn through the wind and dive the new kite and flop on your back, but get used to facing into the wind with the kite facing the other direction, and using your momentum to like basically force the board to complete the turn. It's a step in the right direction, and then eventually you'll be like, oh well, now I need to switch my feet so I can come out sailing.
Yeah, just try waiting longer. I think it would really help a lot of you. You know, just really force that body to make that quick maneuver because you have to. You know, it's just like I'm gonna fall in the water if I don't move right now, and that's the right timing.
Another thing in watching you guys, I feel like when it's a really good tack, it's one complete maneuver. Your kite is on the water, and when you decide to tack, your kite goes, ooh, and it never like
Keeps moving
hiccups
steady.
here.
Yeah.
So I think considering really setting up for your tack and making that tack maneuver with the turn of your board, with the trajectory of your kite being one maneuver instead of
Yeah.
and then going on the other tack. So trying to think of it as a succinct, single, complete maneuver until you're on the new tack.
Yeah, I think the hard part is the timing of when you feel you get that perfect amount of weightlessness, to actually do the tacking motion. I think that was the hardest thing for me to learn. It's kind of like, okay, when is the right time I should be doing this? And eventually, just you get that feel where it's like, okay, that's perfect, and you just try and do it over and over.
Also, I noticed that there are like two styles of doing tacks. One is like Nico is doing, and the other is like Oli or I guess John. And you are closer to Nico, I guess, because you keep your legs bent and you keep yourself lower to the board.
Mm-hmm.
And the other style when you are kind of standing up,
Straight
and,
up.
like straighting, like, and it's like more like this motion. And Nico is basically he bends his legs and he stays low and just twist. I don't know which one is faster.
Yeah, I think it's just style, really. It's just.
But then, like probably with the Nico style, you really need to turn your board more because the guys who stand up, they are not turning. No, I think they are not turning that much. They don't need to probably at all.
In ultralight wind, what do you do to get through the tack? Do you try to get high through the tack, for example? Like,
oh, in terms of like foil height?
Yeah.
I don't really think of that as like much of a thing I'm trying to control as long as the foil stays in the water. Like if it is really light, you come out and you're all the way up on the foil, that's kind of nice because you have a little bit more stored energy. So like you can kind of get one more pump out of it. But I'm not really.
You don't change anything then in your tack in light wind?
I'm sure I change a lot
Just
of things.
trying to get the kite onto the new side because it's really hard to accomplish it with enough speed, like especially if you're really on the bottom end of being able to even pull a tack, you just really need to get that kite turned fast. So, I mean, that's what I'm focusing on. Because the second you stop foiling, you're done.
Yeah, I think in light air you want to get to a point, kind of like what you said earlier, and this is probably true for all conditions, but even more so for light air, where you're still going into the wind, your heading hasn't changed that much, but you've worked the kite up, and you're trying to keep your speed constant so that the kite kind of gets high, but you have to sheet out in order to not get lifted. That's a good place to be because that means that when you head up into the wind, you can pull in.
Power.
You can pull in for some lift to hold you up, right? So if you find yourself leaning back hard going into the tack with the kite already really high and you're pushing the bar away from you to not get lofted, that's a good start because that means that now you can turn into the wind. You don't have any foil lift anymore, but you can pull in on the kite and transfer your weight to the harness. So
Yeah, I mean, I even catch myself sometimes in the light stuff. I'll have two hands on the same side of the bar, just like literally ripping that thing as hard as I can.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why I do it, but it just seems like it works better sometimes.
I work on the biceps.
John, do you time your? It seems that you time. First of all, you time your kite movement, and then to that you synchronize your board movement. So first of all, it is the kite movement, and then like when you.
I think the kite timing is very important. And yeah, like you're not going to start attack by doing something with the board or a jibe. Like the kite's always going to start moving first. So I think like you're going to adjust what you do on the board based on where the kite is at any moment, how much power it has.
Should we talk about jiving?
Oh, are we talking about jiving too?
The easier maneuver?
I know, it's it's beautiful out there. All I'm doing
Let's
is
tap-
looking at the beautiful windcraft.
Let's cap it at 10 minutes on how to jibe.
It's the most
Now.
important maneuver.
Yeah, but it's a little trial and failure.
Ah, come on.
All right,
Well, you know, in physics, when you don't know something, you blame it on entropy. But basically, entropy is when you don't know the state of the system. So try and fail it. It's when you don't know how to teach. Like,
Jive is just ball.
So can people jibe?
kind of.
Just go.
Not as well as I'd like.
Is jibing or tacking easier?
Jiving.
Jiving.
Tagging's so much easier.